See it.
You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
Patience is a good thing.
It is November 20th, 2024, and welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty, where we're bringing you the people and the organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region. And today we have another local one. In fact, this is a returning guest, Michael Rogers. He's going to talk about this kind of socially organizing for liberty, within your community. And we talked to him about a year ago on freedom parties that he was doing, that he sort of started up during the whole COVID regime. And now he's kind of morphing a little bit of that. He's still doing the freedom parties, but he's got this new thing called the Formidable Gentlemen's Club. So we'll talk with him about that a little more, so we can find out how the freedom party's going and all this social organization is going. But before we get into any of that, and by the way, as far as topics go, we're going to talk about some of the sort of election related stuff. We'll get into some topics about the whole Doge thing, where that's that Department of Government Efficiency that Musk is going to be in. So last time we barely touched on that. We're going to take a little bit deeper dive this time. And then we're also going to talk about what does the election really mean? Is it kind of a signal that we're going away from woke culture a little bit? I guess we'll kick that around. And also, too, some of these disturbing war drum beats that we've been seeing as well. And then finally, we have our little knucklehead noise patrol at the end, where we'll cover something bizarre somebody said. But anyways, before we get into anything, let me introduce you to our panel. In our lower left-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. In our lower right-hand corner, we have our screaming eagle of freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California. In our upper right-hand corner, we have our founder of the Formidable Gentlemen's Club and organizing for liberty here in Sacramento. So that's Michael Rogers, and we'll be talking to him a little bit more. But we always start out with a liberty quote. And, I felt like this quote actually kind of captures what maybe something about the election. I know it kind of adds a little bit of meaning for me too with libertarian stuff as well. But Leon, can you bring up the quote of the day? So this one, if you've ever seen the movie The Matrix, there was a powerful scene, and it's a powerful meme throughout the internet. It's been going around ever since that movie came out. And essentially, it's the moment whether when Neo was offered by Morpheus to choose the red pill or the blue pill. And so he says, you take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland. Shoot, that's not the whole quote, darn it. Take the blue pill. Okay, so it says take the blue pill and you go to sleep and you believe whatever you want to believe. But you take the red pill and you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. So this is putting this show together at the last minute, but I'll get this slide out there correct before we post later. But anyways, yeah, I mean, to me, it seems like there was significance in this choice with this election. I mean, essentially the public was offered the red pill or the blue pill, it feels like, and they chose Trump. So maybe that's a little bit of significance there, but I kind of find a little significance with this as well, with sort of ideas about liberty too, because there's so many things that we sort of take for granted that government needs to be involved in. And as you really start to pull back the covers, a lot of times you find out, hey, there's a lot of icky stuff under there that doesn't need to be there. And you start realizing, hey, maybe I've kind of been lied to about a lot of this stuff all along. Maybe I don't need government in a lot of these places. But what do you guys think of that quote? I've loved that quote ever since I heard it and I saw that moment in the movie. What does that quote mean to you guys?
Mike, you can go.
Well, I love the quote, and I think a lot of people have been red-pilled over the last. I think COVID was an event that red-pilled a lot of people, and I hate to do this, but I just saw something, a meme that just fits in here, which was this man holding out this giant red pill to a Democrat. and he says, and the Democrat says, I don't think I can swallow that. And the man says, great news. It's a suppository.
It's all about the presentation.
But I think whether you take it that way or down the throat, it's the ugly truth is better than a pretty lie every day and all the
Indeed.
time. And so I think people are waking up, and as we go into this, I think it's an incredible sign that good times are ahead. That as Trump is saying that there's a golden age, that we're on the precipice of that. So
Yes. I guess it would be a gold pill. I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself, or I don't want the country to get ahead of itself to believe that they they come into that idea that liberty works and liberty is what we really need, and which will bring on this golden age that Trump is promising. However, there is no doubt that if you look at the results of the election, the American public overall have taken a step to the right, which I believe is a good thing. And I'm not sure that all of the people who took that step to the right understand the implications of liberty in their lives, I should say. And but the quote as it is surely signifies that there was some measure of red pilling occurring, and I think that's a wonderful thing for America, for these great lands of ours. And I hope the country will respond accordingly in looking at the new acquired freedoms and liberties and the expressions and manifestations of it. And I do pray that we will get there to something. We may not get to that golden utopia that Trump is promising, but I hope we can get close to it.
And like happens frequently, not always, but frequently, I agree with Leon on this. It won't be quite as verbose, but I think that it's not quite as woo woo as the movie is. You have to become a libertarian to get that far. But I think it's just definitely a step toward more liberty, hopefully, and
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. The guy hasn't even become a president yet. He's the president elect, but we'll see what goes on.
Yeah, Tim, I think the Matrix is definitely a pro Second Amendment movie.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you just conjure them up out of it's kind of like the Fed of firearms, Fed firearms, because you just conjure them up and whoop, there they are, a whole rack of them.
Yeah. Well, I guess speaking of red pilling and blue pilling, let's talk a little bit about how your organizing is going on in Sacramento, Michael. Do you? Is that sort of what the goal is, to try and red pill, or just to sort of connect with people who think the same way, and maybe say, hey, we're not crazy. There are other people out there who think like we do. What's the goal, I guess, behind the Freedom Parties and the Formidable Gentlemen's Club? In fact, let me bring up the image too. This is the image of your Formidable Gentlemen's Club here, and so it actually has a web an email rather, formidable gentleman@gmail.com.
Well, the point of the me starting this was for men to be men again. Men and women, for that matter, for at least since the 60s and probably long before that, have been under attack. Our values, our mores, our way of life have been questioned and overturned, and what sort of incited me to do this was that I went through a sort of a health crisis, and as I was lying there thinking about the world and wanting to do something good for the world, because who knows how much time any of us have got left, it occurred to me that me and my wife had been somewhat active in the local community in terms of we were in Sacramento Freedom Coalition. We were going to a lot of events, and what I saw was mainly women. I mean, 80 to 90% of these people attending these things were ladies. And and it struck me, where are the men? Where are the men? I was often one of 2 or 3 men in 15 people or more. And I asked that question, and the women said, "Yes, where are the men?" You know, they had the same question amongst themselves. And it just occurred to me as I thought about all of this that the men and women, the women with feminism and then men with feminism, have had our traditional roles as head of the household, speakers of truth, providers, defenders, protectors. We're being robbed from us and especially the younger generations where they're confused about roles, and we see that most obviously with all this gender confusion. And so I just thought, well, you know, why aren't men standing up? And so I decided to form a men's group, and so this is what was the inception of Formidable Gentlemen. And you know, I had about 8 friends that I brought together that I knew were of like mind, but not necessarily ideologically the same, but at the minimum had thick enough skin that they could hear what each other had to say, and not, you know, get upset and walk out the room. And so I began to talk to men and ask them how they felt about these things, and you know, and the fact that the culture, our current culture, is calling men masculinity toxic. That was introduced via
toxic masculinity.
Toxic masculinity, which is kind of emblematic of the whole thing. They don't want us to be men because, you know, a friend of mine told me, he says, "Mike, how do you tame a herd of animals? How do you tame it?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." He says, "You castrate the bulls. Then you can move that herd anywhere that you want." And that really stuck with me. That was a precursor to my revelation.
Isn't that the new California motto? Castrate the bulls.
I think this has been in the works for decades. Is to castrate the men to keep men passive. Same thing for adding fluoride to water, etc. Is to keep us passive so that we don't stand up for our beliefs, our deeply held convictions, and we don't stand up to protect our nation as we should, and we don't stand up to protect our families and our women as we should. Not to say all men, of course not, but I mean, this is something that's descended on our culture that has really caused a lot of disruption, especially in young men's minds, about their role in our society and in the family. And so basically that's what drove me to form this group. And Formidable Gentlemen is formidable. We're formidable. We are strong. We are not going to be put down, but we're gentlemen. We're going to be gentle about it. We're not brutes, but we're going to speak our truth. And that's, you see that we speak truth. And when we say that, we're not saying that we have the final answer or the final truth. But what we're saying is, whatever our deepest convictions, whatever we truly believe, that we're going to stand and defend it until such time as we've been convinced that we're wrong. And so, to me, that speaking of truth is the key, because it allows each of us to know, and in our group, in our men's group, is to allow us to know that we're not thinking the different thoughts, that we have a lot of the same thoughts, and that we can reinforce each other and reach out to new men to join the group, who we can then, and hopefully we're going to get more young people involved in this. And ultimately, I want to start a second chapter and a third chapter and see if we can make this thing grow. But ultimately, Jason, the idea was that let men to come together, reinforce each other's beliefs and beliefs of our fathers, that we have this role in society and in our families, and that we're not going to be pushed out of it without good cause. And that's pretty much the reason behind it.
So Mike, when you I mean, the ideas here to me are quite noble. There's no doubt about that. But how do we, when you have a when you have like a meeting of the minds in any sort of organization, it's very easy for us to become an echo chamber. What are we doing? What are you doing, or what do you think the group should be doing to make sure we don't become that? Because sometimes it's very nice to sit around and everybody in general agree with with whatever we are discussing, but we can't ignore that there's a world out there. So what are we doing, or what should be done to prevent the echo chamber effect?
I don't know that I'm doing anything to prevent the echo, except that I'm asking people to speak their truth.
Okay.
I mean, if it happens to be that we all agree, then we all agree. If we don't, then we don't. Again, really, the qualification to be in this group is not to be a conservative, not to be a libertarian, not to be a Republican, not to be anything. The only, as I've told many people now, the only real criteria you have is that when you come here, you're going to be honest. You're going to speak truth. And B, you better have a thick skin, because you're going to hear things that you don't agree with. But this is why we're gentlemen. We're going to understand what the other person has to say, internalize their message, and then either agree or disagree with it, but not demonize the person because they think differently than we do. But I mean, it's going to be inevitable that some people are not going to be agreeable with the majority of the people in this, or might not even like the ideas. I mean, because obviously this is not going to fit well with transgender people. I mean, it's
Right.
I mean, so there's so if we're going to break some eggs, so be it. But main thing is to speak truth. I mean, it's with sensitivity, but to speak your truth, especially when pressed, in a situation where your beliefs and your values are called into question.
Yeah,
Sure.
it does. I hate to think of the idea that transgender people wouldn't be able to fit in at some point, but it does feel like a little bit of the concern is castrating the bulls. It seems like they might be a little bit for that, or at least not have a problem with it, maybe.
Well, as far as that goes, so someone transitioning from a woman to a man is taking a bunch of testosterone. So if you're castrating the bull, testosterone doesn't come from the testicles. Last I heard, but maybe there is room for a trans man. Because first of all, I'm assuming you're not inclusive of women in this group, correct?
This is a men's group.
It's a men's group. Okay, so if you had a trans man, someone transitioning from a woman to a man, and who for all intents and purposes appeared like a man from the outside, then unless you had everybody drop their drawers, you wouldn't know. You really wouldn't know. And so maybe there is room for a trans man. Obviously, not someone transitioning from a man to a woman. No. But
See, with
the
Tim,
other,
the possibilities are going wild here.
If they get masquerade as a man and convincingly do that, I'll be suckered, okay. But that means they have to have this goes back to really the primary requirement. But you better have a thick skin. You better be able to hear things that you don't agree with, that you might even find offensive, or that and accept it, but and not necessarily agree with it, but at least be able to accept it from that person and have a regular dialogue with them. What I don't want is people to get all nasty and upset.
right.
Stand firm in your beliefs, stand strong in what you believe, but you don't have to be nasty about it. And that's where the gentleman part of it came from. I mean, we went through a lot of names trying to come up with a name. A friend of mine, Dennis Kane, he came up with the name Grow a Pair. And so, that's kind of that would probably be
Grow a
offensive
pair
to certain groups. Yeah, grow a
Yeah,
pair.
if I was transitioning to a man, I'd love to grow a pair.
I don't think that's possible, though.
Well, no, I'm not saying that it is, but I mean, because you're already starting with somebody that has a pair, and you're talking to asking them to start acting in the manly role that was traditionally part of our culture.
Yes.
And I'm not speaking for trans people, but I'm just saying that it doesn't seem to me to exclude them necessarily on that basis, because that's exactly what a trans man is trying to do, is become more manly, more like the traditional thing. And I say this from direct experience. Because
You've got a
bec-
secret to share with us, Tim.
yeah. Here, let me.
No, don't do it.
Well, not that direct, but uh, because yeah, I know personally two people transitioning to a man, and so personally, and one's Susan's son, who was born a female, so my girlfriend. So that is an area where I have some kind of an insight into their personal feelings in that regard. So I just don't see anything wrong with this person or these two people because they look awfully manly at this point, at this point in their transition, but
Well, let us
so
not get too deep in the weeds here. However, I just would like
yes,
to just say
yes,
this.
yes,
I have no problem with these people who call themselves transgender, but I hate the fact, and I hope that they will get real about this issue. I do not expect that they will expect me to participate in their delusions. So if they want to be part of this group, they have to understand I will be as gentle as Mike suggests. I can be as gentle and as kind as I can be, but I want to be very clear that I will not participate in that delusion because it's a
Yeah,
mental disorder.
yeah, I agree with
okay,
that. Yeah, I agree with
yeah.
that. I don't know about you
So
guys, but since I started this, and this was over a year ago, been like a year and a half ago or more, I've seen the same message over and over again in social media. In other words, lots of people. I'm not the only person to recognize that men are under attack, and that we're
Yes,
being intimidated, and that we're being pushed into boxes that we're not comfortable with, and in places that we don't feel like we can effectively live our lives as our parents and our fathers did. And so I'm seeing this all over the place. I'm seeing it in different YouTube channels, and men just being unapologetic about being men, and sometimes not being gentlemen about it, like we're trying to be in this men's group. But it just seems to me this is a social awakening. People are becoming aware of this on a more general basis, and men are starting to stand up. I don't think I have anything to do with it. I think it's a larger societal movement that we're all coming to we're getting the same information, the same data is come flowing in, and we're all feeling a lot of the same stuff. Like, I don't know how to act in this situation anymore.
indeed.
I don't know how to
yeah,
act with my wife anymore. I don't know how to act with my kids anymore. And I'm just tired of it. And I'm tired of it. And I'm gonna reassert my values as a man, as a human being, as a man, and I'm going to live by the values that I believe in.
Sure.
yeah.
Well, you,
I've heard that idea regarding the election, in that men favored Trump at a much higher rate than women did, and women favored Kamala more than men, and that it was in this idea, the same thing you're voicing, Michael, that it was this whole idea that men are under attack from the left mainly, and
Yes,
so you could have a Madam President like a Joe Jorgensen or a Tulsi Gabbard that would be appealing to men, because plenty of men find their approach that is supportive of men to be appealing, and unlike on the left, where everything's like you described there.
yeah, Candace Owens. I think she'd make a good president someday. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, people like that.
I would
Sure.
I wouldn't go, Mike. I wouldn't go that far, but I get your point.
someday. I said someday. She's still got some growing to do. She's a young lady.
Okay. Okay.
well, one thing I wanted to follow up too on is with the election results, the way they were, and Trump winning. Certainly, that feels like a pushback against woke, and then we'll get a little more into that, transition to that in a little bit here. But how do you think that affects your efforts at organizing locally. I mean, with Trump winning and that sort of deflating, I guess, the specter of the woke left, at least temporarily. Do you see a danger maybe of having a harder time getting people to stick together locally and stay organized, or is that?
No, I think we're at the cusp of a new age. And I'm already noticing a lot of because I have a lot of progressive friends, from years gone by, decades gone by. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm, as a Trump supporter, I put up the flag, I put up the yard signs, and I'm the only, two guys on my street. Me and somebody else did it on our street. But I'm having a lot less trepidation wearing my Make America Great Again hat or my Veterans for Trump hat. And I'm getting more comments, positive comments.
Well, what I was going to say is, when you first put that up at your house, I mean, did you have some of that Tesla bulletproof glass to keep rocks from flying through your windows?
When I put it up, what happened, and don't forget that 4 out of 10 voted for Trump in California. Okay. But what happened when I put those, and I got the big 4 by 6 foot flag, Make America, Take Back America, Trump flag, people were honking when they drove by. Now, nobody told my. I bought an extra sign.
Nobody flipped the bird when they were honking.
And it's still in my garage. I never had to put it up because nobody vandalized anything.
When I did notice that the first time around, when he ran in 2016, I mean, we saw images of people attacking people in the street for wearing the MAGA hats. So I guess, when did you, first come out with a MAGA hat? Did you come out in this election, the last election against Biden, or the first election against, when did you awaken to see an alignment with Trump, I guess?
I've been just like most people. I was asleep, even though I have education in business. I didn't really understand the economy because they don't really teach you that stuff in business. You don't really understand money. And so, but 2016, I didn't vote for Trump. I voted Libertarian, Johnson and Weld. And I thought, if there was ever a chance for a third party, Clinton on one side and Trump, who I thought of as an asshole, on the other side. And I just, this is got to be a third, and they got 3% of the vote.
And sadly, I think it's because Johnson forgot to exhale. But if you're watching on public access, you're going to have to catch the rest of this great conversation online, because that's all the time we have on public access. But the conversation continues, so come check us out online. Go ahead, Michael.
So I didn't vote for him in 2016, and I mean, it's bad. My brother, when he came down the elevator that day, my brother said he's going to be the presidential nomination of the Republicans, and I said, "You're out of your mind." And I said, "If he is, I'll eat a bug." And of course he was, and I ate a bug. It's on YouTube if you ever want to watch it, because he lived in another state.
Well, what kind of bug did you eat?
It was, my wife bought it for me down in Old Sac, and it was a cricket covered in chocolate.
Okay.
It was not good. I could tell you it wasn't good. And the legs got caught in my throat. It was bad. It was bad. But
did you feel like you helped the climate a little bit when you ate that bug?
I ate it with some wine,
I think that should be, to join your group, that should be an initiation procedure.
Prove you're serious.
I didn't like Trump, but I said there on that video to my brother, I said, I'll give him a chance. I don't like this guy, because all I knew about what I saw on TV, and I didn't even watch TV. It's just, you're fired, that kind of stuff, Yes. So I didn't know much about him, but over the next 4 years, although I still didn't, I found much of what he said cringeworthy, I also liked what he did. His actions spoke louder than his words to me, and his words weren't bad; they were just insensitive, and I'm got over that too. That's part of my men's group, is to accept that other people aren't going to think like I do or talk like I do. But so when 2020 came around, I was already I was on the Trump train. But even then, I didn't think that our elections were rigged, or that that there was a problem with our elections. I thought we were honest. I thought things, I thought we were the good guys. And so when Fox News announced Bear announced Arizona the winner in 10 minutes after the polls closed, I knew right then, okay, these people are. I mean, I already knew they were lying, but it just whoa. And then watching the consequence of that election and seeing how badly they stole it and how the whole system was rigged against we the people, I became, and I read a book called Creature from Jekyll Island and some other books that opened my eyes. And so this got me on the warpath to be more activist. That's why I started going to, and then of course, COVID and how they trampled on the Constitution to implement their draconian measures. That all of that tended to both me and my wife, who was very liberal at one time, but now she's even more conservative than I am. We both became concerned for our country and for our children and our grandchildren, and we decided we're going to try to do whatever we could to, pitch in. We know we're too small to do anything big ourselves that is going to have, a decisive effect, but every little bit, and so we decided to go that route, and then so 2024. The difference between that is I knew that they were going to cheat, and everybody knew they were going to cheat, and I prayed to God that they did, because I thought there's too many people looking this time. We'll catch them, then we'll hang them.
Yes, yes.
Well,
It's still. I'm sorry, Jason. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to start transition to the next one, but if you have another comment on this one, then.
No, I was just going to say about, Mike raised the idea of cheating. Well, right now, as we speak, they are still trying to steal a senatorial race in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
The race have already been called by everybody, but the Democrats are still trying to steal. They're even trying to count illegal votes in Pennsylvania as we speak.
Yeah, which is an issue. I mean, it's funny. We had a gal on our show a few weeks ago for the California Election Integrity Project, or Election Integrity California, I think it was, and she talked about that. How when they have their poll watcher people, and they will be there, they're not there in an antagonistic, to be trying to give them a hard time, but they will see things. They know what the rules are, and if they see them not living up to the rules, as they're taking people's votes and doing things that are out, they'll tell it to them. And she says in some places in California, they've just ignored them when they tell them, hey, you're not supposed to do that, and it says right here in this code, you're doing it wrong. And she says, if the local jurisdiction isn't going to enforce it, in some cases, there's no recording it, because it's just going to fly under the radar. So in this case, I guess there's a big spotlight on it in Pennsylvania. So that's
Yeah.
They're crooks.
Yeah,
they're crooks.
It's
You don't
true.
expect
I
them to
agree.
follow the law. They're criminals, and it's all about them and their power and their money, and the hell with the rest of us. We're not in that club. Their club.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
I'm curious what beliefs or opinions you have, Mike, that are that some people find that they don't agree with. Do you have an example of one? I mean, you don't have to come up with more than that, but where you get any pushback from.
I get a lot of pushback on women. Not, I think women and men. The most valuable thing we can do is raise kids. Have families and have a good family life, and that has gone to some degree away in modern culture. And so I'm a strong defender of men as head of household. Not to say, of course, our wives decide almost everything. But when it's necessary as a man, I'm going to do what's right for my family and from my kids and my wife. And I might take heat from them. I definitely will take heat from them. But I'm going to stick up for what I believe is the right thing to do. And I might pay a price for that. But that is probably that, and the fact that men are being pushed around and being feminized. and
Yes.
that we're being feminized, and the women are being made into masculine. That they're trying to change our roles so that we don't know what our roles are. And so, but going back to the election, me and my wife, we closed down boxes for the county of Sacramento. So we go there to make sure that nobody's doing funny business when we collect all of the ballots. And so we've been doing that for like the last 4 years now. 5 years.
So have you guys noticed any oddities?
No.
Okay.
But what we did notice was that there were observers there watching us, and which we thanked them. And every time we said, we're watching you. Thank you very much. We're glad you're here. Because that's what it takes, the citizenry of the public to get involved in this stuff, to make sure they don't cheat on us. Because, boy, they are.
In the end, it's all as good as the trust that we put into it, and so if we can't trust it, then it's not gonna be a very good endeavor. This whole
Trust but verify
thing.
Trust but verify.
Yeah.
But Jason, if you could just allow me one second here, I want to
Well, we're
answer
not going to get to anything else, Leon. We'll move along. We're not going to get to any other topics, Leon.
Go ahead. All right.
Well, let's shift to the woke topic of what was happening with the end of the election here. One of the things I wanted to bring up, this is a little out of order, but I think it flows in with what we've been talking about. And, Leon, maybe you could bring up the visual. So, when we talked about that red pill, blue pill slide, at the beginning of the conversation, I think this has really been called out by some pundits out there recently. I mean, there's an awful lot of Democrats now who are, it feels like maybe they got a taste of the red pill and they realize that their blue pill is kind of sucked. That's the best way to put it. I'm not sure, but Bill Maher seems to be kind of a shepherd of that group, and with his show, gosh, I can't even remember what it's called. Real time, and we actually had a few clips from a recent talk he gave. He had just a blunt message to Democrats where he feels like the wokesters really derailed their campaign, and he does not like Trump. I mean, he is not a fan of Trump. No. He's been feuding with Trump forever. But the bottom line is, he sees that there's some huge problems in his own party, and I think this particular talk had some interesting aspects of that. So, Leon, could you play KOL number 3?
In the one concession I've heard a few people on the losing side offer, that liberals should stop saying the Trump voters are stupid, comes with a kind of unspoken parentheses. We know they are stupid, just don't say it. Yeah, I got bad news for you. They don't have a monopoly on stupid. You wear Queers for Palestine t-shirts and masks 2 years after the pandemic ended. And you can't define woman, I mean person who menstruates. You're the teachers union education party, and you've turned schools and colleges into a joke. You just lost a crazy contest to an actual crazy person.
And he really doesn't like Trump, so he's very upset that his party has found a way to lose to Trump. But it's just, I mean, it's hard to deny any of these truths. I think we all have seen this. It's just that the people in the Democrat Party haven't really been seeing it until maybe this election. They're kind of starting to see it. There's a few other clips, too, we have of that talk. It was such a good talk. I wanted to show a few other spots from it. Leon, can you play KOL number 2? Or not 2, excuse me, number 4.
Do problems remain pertaining to racism and sexism? Of course. But a poll last year asked, if America is the greatest country in the world, more blacks and Hispanic Americans agreed with that than the white progressives. It asked if racism is built into our society. White progressives agreed with that at higher levels than black and Hispanic people. It asked if government should increase border security. Same result. Hispanic Americans are less okay with illegal immigration than whitey.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's hard to argue with this. It seems like the people who are crying racism the loudest are white people who are claiming that other white people are racist. I don't know. It just seems kind of crazy to me. We do have a few other clips, but did you guys have any? I mean, what do you guys think about some of these observations? Because to me, I've been thinking that the left is just clown world insane for the last 4 or 5 years. What do you guys think about this?
None of this is new to me, Jason, because since the 1960s, Malcolm X warned us about white liberals. Seriously.
Mhm. Yes.
His videos are available online. You could go look at them.
That
He
would have been a
said the
good
white
quote for the
liberals are the
show.
most dangerous people in the world. That's what he said, something along those lines. So none of this is new to me. And they're always there trying to help us. Us. They always want to help us. But all they do is to give us the crumbs that's left over from their garbage, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Michael, because that seems to go, that whole racism thing goes along, to me, to my way of thinking, with the idea of this emasculation of men in America, part of it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think these people who are doing social engineering, because these things are not accidental in my view. I think there are somebody, and I don't know exactly who, but there's somebody up there who has an agenda to emasculate men and to masculate women. And I think that they use virtue and they use fear to convince us that we're, more than anything, to disrupt our thinking process. And in other words, they tell lies not because they want you to believe that particular lie, but they tell so many lies you don't know what to believe. That we're just really in almost a chaotic space. But I think that the progressives right now are starting to wake up. I have 2, 3, 4 very progressive friends. They called me out of nowhere and made bets that Harris would win this election. And one was a $200 bet, one was a $100 bet, and so on. And they came over and paid. So honors to them for that.
Did they reach into their pocket or somebody else?
Somebody.
Because a lot of time with the left pays.
Both of these gentlemen were. One was a gay guy, but they're both of them were not what I call well off. This was a lot of money to them, but they thought they were going to win. Yes. And so I asked them, "What were you surprised by this outcome?" All of them were shocked. They thought that it was in the bag. Okay, but it's funny because they're contrite. Now they know who I am. They know where I stand because I speak the truth. But they came over. They were contrite, and they said, "Boy, we lost the swing states. We lost the popular. We lost everything." And they're actually starting to think. I think this was a slap in the face for them. And, I did take the money.
Yes.
But then after I made them suffer for a while, I gave it back to them because it would be hardship for both of them. And I just said, okay, here, do me a favor and invest it into Bitcoin.
Yes.
They're probably thanking you now.
I hope so.
But even if you look at the election results, okay, and you will be talking about men. Look at the election results. Black men came out for Trump in numbers unseen in God knows how long. Hispanic men came out for Trump in numbers unseen in how long. White men came out for Trump in all sorts of numbers. The whole point is we saw that men were rebelling. This election was a rebellion. Of men. And I think the results, if you could look at them, will prove me out. That men came out and they came out for Trump because they are rebelling against this feminist woke garbage that have been suffocating us.
Yeah.
There's one more clip I want to show. I'd had 2, but I think that one more will make the point. But Bill Maher talked about as well a congressman who was sort of waking up to some of these ideas on the left, and he had to fight with his own campaign manager, who I guess went I don't know whether woke-tard is the right word or whatever, but and just threw a fit when he made a stand. But Leon, maybe you could show KOL 6.
Last week, Massachusetts Congressman Seth Moulton said, "I have 2 little girls. I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a formerly male athlete. But as a Democrat, I'm supposed to be afraid to say that." Yes, there's the problem in a nutshell. Because Congressman Moulton sounds reasonable to me, but his campaign manager immediately resigned in protest. Let me make this as plain as I can to the smart people. The campaign manager who resigned, yeah, let that person go. Marginalize that guy. Try making too woke be a cancelable offense.
So, and I feel like that's a huge takeaway to me, at least from this whole election.
That really speaks to a formidable gentleman. That's what I'm trying to say, is we should not be afraid to speak the truth. We should not be afraid to speak our truth. We should stand up for what we believe and proudly proclaim it, not to say that we're dogmatic, that we can't be convinced we're wrong, or not even to say that we have the final answer, the final truth, but nobody does. Nobody does. But what we have is our deeply held convictions that we thought it through. This is what everybody's got to have a guiding star to follow in their choices. You got to have something out there. Otherwise, you're just going to stay in the same place. And that guy saying, "I'm afraid to speak the truth," is exactly what this is about, is to give our men the courage to speak up and speak their truth to power to anybody who is attacking our values and our way of life. And unless they can convince me, I'm going to continue to speak, And so that really was a great quote a great clip that sort of gets to the heart of what I'm trying to do with this club, which is just to get men to stand up and be men.
I mean, if we try to live by some set of universal standards, one of them being that facts and truth must be able to survive scrutiny, I think we'll be all right. So that whenever anybody comes with anything, sure, we could debate it and all that kind of stuff. But whatever their opinions are, it must be able to withstand scrutiny. And this is something I would hope that we can incorporate into this group of formidable gentlemen, that if you want to call it your truth, that's okay. But it must be able to withstand scrutiny for it to survive.
Absolutely. No, I'm not saying we have the ultimate truth. I'm saying that This is what we believe. But that means you better keep a part of your mind open, because you might be wrong.
Right, exactly.
Until I'm convinced I'm wrong, unless you've got better reasons, and I've thought this through, and I've come to this conclusion with great thought, well, then I'm going to defend it as best I can. And I'm not going to be ashamed to do so.
Hey, Michael, how do you, or have you done this, or if you did, how would you reach out to younger men to join the group?
Well, I'm starting to do that now. My wife is a member of a group called Mama-litia. I don't know if you've heard of that. No. It's Mama, that's a women's group.
Yeah.
And a Mama-litia. And so they've got about 30 members, and they're younger because they've all got kids.
And do they have musters?
They do go to the firing range. They're Second Amendment people. They do go to the fire, but they do a lot of canning. They do a lot of the traditional women skills and learning women's skills that really support us. I mean, we all know how important women are to our lives. I mean, we couldn't live without them. Those wonderful, beautiful, marvelous creatures. And they're strong, and they're so. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm arranging now to go into this group and make a presentation and invite the husbands. Is one thing. And then, but it's got to be pretty much organic, person to person at this point. I'm not in the position to spend a lot of money on advertising, and nor do I want to. I want this thing to grow more or less organically, bit by bit. Got another couple of guys coming. We had a new member last time. Got another new member, I believe, is going to be here next time. 2 members, actually, new members. So that brings us up about to 16 people. And we started out with 8, and so it's growing. And we expect that I expect to go pitch this to groups of that would be of a younger age, because everybody I know is like a bunch of codgers.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I
Well, yeah, of course, your group.
I'm a codger myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
let me say in the
Age group.
name of efficiency, as we have used up a lot of our time, I'm going to can the Doge discussion. So
Oh,
Elon
no!
well, I think I'm not sure. I mean, we could go long if you want, but I'm trying to respect everybody's time, so it depends upon what you guys want to do. But
Yeah.
I was thinking.
I'll let Michael talk about Doge and Leon. I won't say anything. Unless I
Okay, well then
have
let's
to.
jump into the Doge stuff, because I definitely wanted to touch on the war stuff, because oh my gosh, we talk about something to be worried about. But so let's jump into talking about the Doge issue. So Leon, can you bring
Can I
up
call it Doggy? I like Doggy better.
the
I
doggy?
do too.
I don't think Leon or Elon would
Yeah,
approve.
well, they call the coin Doji. Actually, it's spelled the very same way they call it Doji.
Leon,
But
did you know that your name and Elon's name are kind of
yeah, I
got all
know.
the same letters?
Same number of letters, and if you
I
switch them
just
around or
discovered.
whatever, you could get Leon. Yes, I know. Maybe I could get wealthy like him.
There's an actual term for that.
Well, anyways, so obviously Elon has been involved with Dogecoin, and so that's part of the issue with here. He's been in his involvement with the Trump administration, or the upcoming Trump administration. I guess Trump had asked him what he wants to do to be involved with it, and he said, "Well, I'd like to be involved with trying to streamline government, and so to make it more efficient." And so they've decided then that, I guess, in keeping with his affinity for the Dogecoin, he's called it the Department of Government Efficiency, so therefore Doge. And so Leon, could you bring up the visual here? So this is an article. It's a little bit dated, November 2nd, but this is where they started talking about what Elon might be involved with in the Trump administration. And so he was reaching out, and at first they were talking about Ron Paul coming on board, but I think Ron Paul's idea was just get rid of it all. So that was a little bit too simple. So but we do have some visual of Elon sort of talking about the concept at a town hall that he had in Pittsburgh. And so, Leon, maybe you could bring this up. I think this is KOL 2, because we had one where he was talking about an example of government inefficiency, and then another where he was talking about his idea for the department. I think KOL 2 is the one for the department.
What that's going to do is really just take a look at all the federal expenditures and say if something is not, if you're not getting great value for money for your hard-earned tax dollars, cancel it. So I regard this as, I would like to say it's a hard job, but actually it's not, because there's so much waste. So I actually think this is a fairly easy job. Although we'll get a lot of opposition, naturally, from the entrenched interests that get the money and do nothing good with it. We want a transparent, open government, and because there will be mistakes that are made. But you want if there's with transparency comes trust, and that's the best way to restore trust in government. Not that you should trust government. You shouldn't trust government, but it'll be you can trust it slightly more.
I did like that, where he said, "Hey, don't trust government." I think he's being a little red-pilled on some of this libertarian ideas. But he also had a really concrete discussion about what some of his ideas were within efficiency in government. I thought this was a great example that he gave. So, Leon, can you play KOL number 1?
It's just they don't realize that there's this massive tax in the form of irrational regulation. I'm going to give you a recent example that is just insane. Is that like SpaceX was fined by the EPA $140,000 for they claimed dumping potable water on the ground, drinking water. So, and we're like, this is at Starbase, and we're like, we're in a tropical thunderstorm region. That stuff comes from the sky all the time, and there was no actual harm done. It was just water to cool the launch pad during liftoff, and there's zero harm done. They agree, yes, there's zero harm done. And we're like, okay, so there's no harm done. And but you want us to pay a $140,000 fine? It's like, yes, because you didn't have a permit. Okay, we didn't know there was a permit needed for zero harm fresh water being on the ground in a place where fresh water falls from the sky all the time. And then like then they were like, well, we're not going to process any more of your applications for launch, for Starship launch, unless you pay this $140,000. They just ransomed us, and we're like, okay, so we paid $140,000. But it's like, this is no good. I mean, at this rate, we're never going to get to Mars.
So there you have Elon Musk giving an example. We literally poured water on the ground at a place where it rains, and the government told us we couldn't pour water on the ground. Right? But what do you guys think about this? I mean, I had some thoughts that I was going to share, but I'm just curious about what your guys' ideas are on this whole Doge Department of Government government efficiency that Elon is shooting for here.
Mike, you can go.
I think it's fantastic. Him and Ramaswamy are businessmen. They're not politicians. They're rich. Musk is not the richest man. They call him it, but the really richest, they don't show us. But he's rich enough that he doesn't care about money that way. And I think they're going to do one hell of a job. He cut Twitter by something like 75%, and it's working better now. Look at. I worked for the state for 2 years, and it was inefficient, terribly inefficient. And I know that they're right, that there's a lot of fat that needs to be cut. And I just applaud it. And I think these are the right guys to do it. I think Trump, who is, by the way, a manly man, if nothing else, he's setting an example for these young men, how to be a man and not to be afraid to say things that might offend other people.
He's certainly a bull in the china shop is probably a great description of Trump.
Yeah, but as Americans, we have that right. We have the right to be jerks. We have the right to be wrong. We have the right to be offensive. Not to say that people will give us pushback, but the Constitution gives us the right to speak and say and even lie if that's what we want to do. But I think these guys are intent on. I think we're at a cusp of a new age, and that we're going to see some really fundamental changes happening here. At least I pray to God. I pray to God that this goes through and that they're not impeded to such an extent that they can't get it done. But I have a feeling if you look at his cabinet and you look at the people he's aligning himself with, we're going to see something that we have not seen in our lifetimes. And I'm all for it.
Indeed. So while Jason, I know you want to get to the obvious contradiction, the inherent contradiction here, in that you're creating a government agency to make the government more efficient, and that is a clear contradiction. I accept that. Okay. What is different, I think, though, about this particular Department of Government Efficiency, even government efficiency is somewhat of an oxymoron. But what is different here, to me, is the people who is going to lead this department. And just like Mike said, 2 billionaires, well, Ramaswamy is not a billionaire, but he's probably close to it now. 2 guys who don't care about where their next paycheck is going to come from. 2 guys who are not going to be looking to a K Street job when they're out of government. These 2 guys have money to burn, and to burn for several generations. So I think their interest will be just like Elon Musk said, to make the government more efficient and to make the government more transparent. I know it's more difficult for him to do the things he did with Twitter, and well, it's now X. It's more difficult in the government to do those sort of things. But I think their intentions and their actions will prove out to be a very good thing for this great land of ours.
Yeah. Well, I certainly agree, Leon, with the concept. I mean, I'm just a little more like Ron Paul. I'm looking at entire departments and I'm saying, I don't want to, figure out whether or not they're using the toilet paper efficiently. I just don't think that department should be there, period. On some of these, and that's, I think, where it gets down to principle a little bit. And Leon, maybe you could bring up a visual, and this is one of the, I guess, contradictions that I guess you were kind of alluding to, and it's the idea that this sounds like a great idea, this department of Doge, but we already have essentially inspector generals in almost all of these departments that they're talking about. And this is the Council of Inspector Generals. They've got so many inspector generals, believe it or not, now that they need a council of inspector generals. And there's apparently now, as of I believe it's 2023, there are 72 IGs across the federal government. And that doesn't include all the ones in state government either. And that's the whole mission of these inspector generals. And they're doing a terrible job, obviously.
It's because they're bureaucrats.
Sure, absolutely.
They're bureaucrats. They're put in there by government. And with these two guys, like Leon was just saying, I call it, they've got FU money.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
They
Sure.
have
Yes.
FU money. And so
Yeah.
that means you can't bully them. You can't buy them. They're going to do what they think is right. Now, whether they can implement it, but I think with Trump behind them, I think there's a darn good chance. They're not going to get everything, but I think we're going to see a massive change.
Well, but Michael, this is the only thing I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that some of the principles of people like a Ron Paul will come through here, and we will have essentially some kind of a principled test of saying, hey, look, should this even be in the government's purview, and then just be able to eliminate whole swaths of government. Because the problem is, if we just are trying to say, hey, I don't like this little rule here, I don't like that little rule there, well, maybe that even works when we have a star like Elon and Ramaswamy in there. But eventually they're going to go away and they're going to be replaced by bureaucrats. I mean, the good king doesn't, stick around forever. And then we've got essentially just one more inspector general over all the other inspector generals at that point, which just seems like a band-aid on top of 72 other band-aids.
I hear
I mean,
they are talking about eliminating the Department of Education now.
Yeah, no, I like that.
They are thinking along the lines that you're thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that is the one promise. And believe me, if I see a whole department get eliminated, I mean, that was one of the things, Musk, I didn't get that clip, but he was talking, I think, with Joe Rogan, and he said that he put into AI how many federal departments are there, and AI couldn't give them a number. It's like they lost track of how many different departments there are. And I mean, there's just so it's funny. I mean, we hear that issue about laws, right? There's so many laws on the book that we don't even know when we're in violation of a law. Like he didn't know he was in violation of dumping water on the ground to cool his launch pad, right? I mean, just insanity. So that's yeah. So anyway, so that's my only concern, is that we don't get carried away and think, oh, this will fix it. We got this one new patch and that'll fix it. But man, if we don't get down to principles, it's not gonna, fix it long term. It's, just hoping that, the gut feelings of Elon and Ramaswamy aren't enough to fix the big beast.
Jason, getting back to our discussion last week, the principles will be the U.S. Constitution says what the federal government can and cannot do, and if they fall outside those boundaries, then you could get rid of them. That's my principle.
Yeah.
What about you, Ken? What do you think about this?
Well, in tagging on to Leon's thing, I say goodbye, Department of Drug Enforcement, then, because to me, I didn't see anything in the Constitution that said that the federal government was they're in the business of enforcing.
Yeah, we're not playing any favorites here, Leon.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I agree, Leon. Get rid of them.
I think Jason agrees also.
Exactly.
I think it's coming. Honestly, I really think that's what they're looking at, that kind of major moves.
So to build on this, I think I can't remember and Leon will know the decision that overturned Roe v. Wade. What was the name of it?
Dobbs decision.
Dobbs decision is indicative of future decisions where they're going to go, hey, wait a second, here's where that the Constitution gave federal government the power to regulate marriage, to regulate of any kind. It's all states. What goes into your body, what a person chooses to put in or not put into their body. It's not in the purview of the federal government. Firearms, another one. And
remember, Joe
let's see.
Biden doesn't think you should be able to have a cannon, though. Although he
Yeah,
does think
right.
you should be able to shoot a shotgun right out your door, apparently.
Yeah. And
And shoot them in the leg if
and,
they're coming at you.
Yes.
right. And then there was another education. Federal
Education.
government. What's the federal government doing in the education department? That's
Indoctrinating.
local.
That's what they're doing. They're
Yeah, outside
indoctrinating
of,
people.
exactly. But they are indoctrinating, but they're not doing it under the powers of the Constitution. They're making
Yeah.
up their own powers. So
Mhm.
I think they ought to apply all this same stuff. And so, get federal government out of all this crap they're not supposed to be in and put it back to the states, just like they did with Dobbs' decision.
I mean, like the Constitution says.
Yes, correct.
Exactly.
Yeah, if we followed the founding fathers too a little more, I think we might not be involved in so many wars, which does bring us to the last big topic of the show. And I don't know if you know it, because the media doesn't seem to be covering it like it's that important. Certainly Joe Biden doesn't, treat it like it's that important, but we have a nuclear power threatening us with nuclear war at the moment. And he's off in South America. Leon, maybe you could bring up the visual here. So Ukraine apparently has been given some missiles by the United States that are long-range missiles that can target targets inside of Russia. And apparently they've been giving them these missiles before, but they've had them on a leash and said you can only fire them at targets inside of Ukraine. Well, now they're saying, have at it. You can fire at some of the targets in Russia as well, to which Russia isn't very happy. In fact, we have a video of this issue that kind of shows the current. I mean, it seems beyond the pale to me, but it's KOL 7. Leon, maybe you could play that video for us.
Joe Biden made a major announcement regarding the war in Ukraine, which could have dire consequences for the world, before wandering off into the Amazon rainforest. Yes, the bizarre footage came as Joe Biden approved the use of long-range US-supplied missiles by Ukraine to get deeper into Russian territory. The Biden administration will allow Kiev use of ATACMS to strike Russia for the first time since the war began. The news emerged from the Biden administration as Joe Biden was in the Amazon rainforest on Sunday, announcing a multi-million-dollar plan to reforest the Amazon. The president took no questions about the bombshell Ukraine announcement during his press conference, instead bizarrely just walked off into the rainforest. President Vladimir Putin then responded to the news, not mincing his words and threatening to use nuclear weapons in the war.
In the updated version of the document, aggression against Russia by any non-nuclear state, but with the support of a nuclear state, is proposed to be considered as their joint attack on Russia.
So there you have it. That's kind of where we're at. And I'm almost wondering, it felt like, kind of a good moment with Trump getting elected, that might defuse this war, but will he even make it to office before this whole thing blows up? This seems absolutely nuts to me. And like I said, that video was 2 days old. So the news article I showed, they fired those missiles already into Russia.
They did,
so,
yes.
Yeah.
They
So, and by the way, Britain is also sending some missiles as well for them to now, because this is group insanity at this point. So, yeah. So anyways, I kick this to you guys. I mean, I think this is absolutely alarming, and certainly says why we shouldn't be playing policeman of the world when our policeman is Joe Biden. Anyways.
Apparently, we're policing rainforests too. Now, where in the Constitution does the federal government have the power to take our money and go over there and cultivate rainforests in another continent? Never mind another country, another freaking continent. Anyway.
Yeah. Hopefully that caught Elon's radar with Doge.
Yeah.
Well, it might not matter after it's the thermonuclear weapons go off over the rainforest, and at that point it's a kind of
may not.
point, right?
Yes,
but my feelings on this is that I think that the world has matured in many different ways over the last decade or so, and that I didn't really understand what a false flag was 15 years ago. I didn't understand how all that stuff worked, and like 9/11 or a lot of other things that have gone down. But now a lot of the people understand that we're being manipulated, and that includes these world leaders like in Iran and in Russia, and so they're being manipulated. I think they're poking the bear. No, I mean, that's appropriate. Poking the bear to try to start something. But I don't think that the bear is going to respond in the way that they want because they know they're being worked. And so my gut feeling is that they're going to respond. They're going because they have crossed a red line. We've crossed a red line with them. They're going to have some kind of response, and it's going to be deadly, but it's not going to be thermonuclear. They're going to have to do something. But I think they're going to wait it out, and I think that they're looking forward to a new administration where they can actually have a real conversation, and maybe get some real results. Because the administration we have now is totally. Well, they're inept. They're not even legitimate. So I think we're going to get through this. It is scary, but I think we're going to see a tempered response, and then I think we're going to get a new administration somehow.
Well, I think though, I'm not into hero worshiping or any of that. I did vote for Donald Trump, as everybody on this show probably know. But the point is though, I think with Trump in office, well, not yet in office, but in transition to office, I think it's going to make a big difference in terms of the reaction of Vladimir Putin for this particular missile attack that Joe Biden signed off on. So even though, I mean, Trump cannot physically do anything right now, he's not president. But I think the aura of his reputation stretches far and wide enough to temper Putin's reaction to all this. So Mike, yes, I agree with you. I think he might do something, right? But I don't think it's going to be his use of nuclear weapons. I think he will threaten it, and he will probably threaten it again. But I don't think he's going to use it.
Pray not.
Yeah, true, definitely.
I mean, all it takes is 10 thermonuclear bombs to go off on the planet to create a nuclear winter for about 18 to 24 months. And that means billions of people starve.
Sure.
So
Yeah, well,
can't have it. Can't have it.
Even at that small amount, though, that's not what's going to happen. It's all the major countries, the United States, basically Russia and China, they have a use it or lose it policy, because if they don't launch everything is going to, the things they do have, they're going to lose them because they're going to be targeted. Every silo is targeted. And so, yeah, you've got submarines. Well, we do, but they don't. So, it's just a use it or lose it. So when they start launching back and forth, they're going to launch everything. I mean, everything. And so there's not going to be a worry about a nuclear winter because we're all going to be dead. I mean, everybody's going to be dead.
Yeah.
Well, the sad thing is too, I mean, we had something similar that is kind of analogous with the Cuban Missile Crisis, where, this was on our doorstep, where Russia was trying to do things near ours. And somehow with some people who are big proponents for Ukraine, they don't seem to see the analogy. I don't know why of the whole thing with the Cuban Missile Crisis, because it almost fits to a T. But we had saner minds back then too. I mean, the people in the Kennedy administration, I'm not saying they were necessarily the best minds in the world or anything, but compare that to Joe Biden, who makes this announcement and he just sort of wanders off into the rainforest afterwards. I mean, and Kamala, who would just talk about this being an unburdening of what has been or something. I don't know. I just,
unburdened by what can be, or whatever it is. Unburdened.
What has been. Yeah, that's a quote from Karl Marx, by the way.
Yeah,
that literally a quote from Karl Marx.
Yeah.
Well, she's the one that made a statement in front of the United Nations prior to this, just prior to Putin invading Ukraine, that said that definitely Ukraine is for it to come into NATO, it's still definitely on the table. So as soon as she said that in an address to the United Nations, that's next day our couple days later is when Putin invaded Ukraine. So she's she's just right into that whole mess, and that's what they want.
Yeah, and Jason, back in the Cuban Missile Crisis, Kennedy was a saner head, and he was looking at shutting down the CIA because they were involved in that Bay of Pigs operation, and that's why they killed him. I mean, they just took him out, and so we have to watch out. And they've tried on Trump now, twice?
Yeah.
So this is serious. This is serious,
right?
business.
Yeah, if I had a prediction to make, I'd predict that there's going to be some serious especially if Trump pulls us out of Ukraine or makes them negotiate peace. They do not want that. The powers to be, and so the powers to be are going to try to take him out. And,
the warmongers. The warmongers.
Yeah, the warmongers are going to try to. Yeah,
they're making a lot of money out of this.
I really don't think the warmongers are that stupid, quite frankly. Because if they do something as egregious as that, I mean, they're going to be held to pay for one thing. And I think though they will make Donald Trump into a martyr. And they don't want that.
Leon, I was going to say is they've already made him into a living legend. So maybe a martyr might be easier for them to take than a living legend. I mean, I wish I would have brought the visuals for this because he was at the the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Champ things with Dana White recently. And it was, I couldn't believe, I mean, what you're seeing there. It's like after coming through this victory, he's going down, he's coming in. These aren't people who Trump paid to be there. These aren't people who these are people who paid a lot of money for tickets to go see a fight. And here Trump comes walking down into the arena with Tulsi Gabbard. I think Elon Musk was there. You had, I guess Kid Rock was there, and you had RFK.
Mike Johnson was there.
Yeah, Mike Johnson, the speaker. Although I don't. The standing ovation was for him. But the crowd went bananas. And I mean, it was like you're seeing essentially a Roman gladiator who's just walking into an arena and everybody's cheering for him. Nobody's being paid to do it like with Kamala. I mean, this is legit. They created their own monster to fight, because I don't see how it's the popularity that he has is absolutely insane. In fact, one of the guys who was a champ that night got out. They're all doing this Trump kind of shuffle that he does now, which Bill Maher, by the way, used to describe as Trump jerking off two guys at once. Well, I guess the joke's on Bill, because now everybody is doing that. All the football players, everybody, when they score down, they're all doing this now, showing it's like they're speaking their truth, Mike.
Indeed. But to add to the phenomena that you just described, Jason, at the end of the fight, the guy who won the belt, he walked over and he gave the belt to Donald Trump.
Yep, and he talked to him for about 2 minutes there while everybody watched him have a conversation with Trump and hand him the belt. It's just unreal. I mean, you can't buy this kind of, legit publicity. And I think Kamala found that out too after a billion too late.
They're saying it was more than $1 billion now, so I don't know exactly what the current number is.
That's an important point, and this is true in 2016 as well, and in 2020. They outspent Trump by 2 to 1. At least. And that shows, and thank God it shows that the power of money is starting to wane in people's minds. And, because they've been buying them for a long time, by buying the media, buying this and buying that. But people are starting to think for themselves again. Thank God.
Yeah.
Well, I think I don't know. I'm ignorant because I don't watch mainstream news at all.
That doesn't make you ignorant. That makes you wise. That doesn't make you ignorant. It makes you wise.
I thank you for that. But I was about to say that it makes me ignorant about how much was spent and where the ads came from. That all this money, that's all this money. Where did it go? How did it, come out to the American public? And because I'm thinking now we're today, I mean, it used to be when I was, a young man with a family and everything. I'd come home and I'd watch the news, and we'd have Channel 3, Channel 10, Channel 13, ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox. Okay. And that was it. That was it. And you would go, and it would be 6 o'clock news. And then at whatever it was, 8 o'clock, I guess the 8 o'clock shows would come on, and then 11 o'clock news. You might stay up for that. That was it. Okay. And so nowadays, however, you've got this massive amount of mainstream media available, but you're being pulled to podcasts and to YouTube and to
Yes.
Facebook, and you're being pulled in 17 different directions at once, and you're picking up a little of this and a little tidbit over here and a little of that over there, and you go to the Knuckleheads of Liberty and you watch this and so on and so forth. And so the opinions now are being molded not by just CBS,
A
ABC,
gatekeeper.
and NBC.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. Who's all getting the same, story from one central location.
And
So
not only that, but the gatekeeper now, it's very apparent that there's a gatekeeper and that gatekeeper is deranged.
Yes,
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Yeah, and so the one thing about this election is that it showed that the people do not believe in that gatekeeper anymore. Maybe there's some remnants, some leftovers, but everybody else is watching Joe Rogan and 15 other different sources of information.
And that's a great.
This was a slap in the face, because I could tell you that my friend that I took the bet from, he says, well, he asked me, what? How did you know? I said, well, I watch, listen to many different people. I said, and he said, what should I do? I said, get on X. And he said, well, that's the enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I said, well, you want to
There you
know
go.
why I knew it was going to be a landslide? You didn't get on X.
Well, maybe before that, he ought to read The Art of War by Sun Tzu, because he says, get a little chummier with your enemies and so on. So maybe you ought to get a little chummy with the enemy.
Well, this discussion of mainstream media is actually a good segue, and we could probably spin those thoughts into this. But and it's the fact that we talked about this a little bit on the last show, but this is our Knucklehead Noise Patrol here. But we're talking about Morning Joe and Mika Brzezinski, and how, I guess, they're just appalling saga that they've had throughout Trump's saga of success over these last 12 years, I guess. And it's culminated in them starting out essentially giving Trump a platform back in 2015 to having him on their show all the time, and then suddenly turning on him after he got the Republican nomination. So you really makes you wonder, but then eventually they decided he was Orange Hitler somewhere down the line. And now they're finally kissing the ring. And, the bizarreness, I mean, the way they've destroyed their own reputation, just absolutely nuts. Leon, maybe you could bring up the visual here. So there's an article from the AP here, and it says, Kissing the Ring, MSNBC Morning Joe hosts meet with Trump to reopen lines of communication. And so we have a few clips that I wanted to share here. So this has just really enraged a lot of people in their echo chamber, because they've been talking about how Trump is Orange Hitler, and now all of a sudden they're going to talk with Orange Hitler. Maybe you could play KNP1, Leon.
Broadcast, and even said we would appreciate the opportunity to speak with the president-elect himself. On Friday, we were given the opportunity to do just that. Joe and I went to Mar-a-Lago to meet personally with President-elect Trump. It was the first time we have seen him in 7 years. And for those asking why we would go speak to the president-elect during such fraught times, especially between us, I guess I would ask back, why wouldn't we? We know this will be a consequential presidency. The question is whether it will be constructive. It will take a new approach from all sides, from both parties, and a leader who can bring them together. And only time will tell if Donald Trump is that leader.
So there's them saying, well, maybe now Trump could be that leader. Now, I want to show you another clip of them just 8 months ago, essentially talking about Trump as though he's Hitler. So now apparently they think Hitler might be somebody they can work with. Leon, can you play KNP number 2?
And now revealing that he had a lot of fondness for Adolf Hitler.
And let's just keep going back to that famous saying, when somebody tells you who they are, believe them. Donald Trump is continuing to tell us, and with more rapidity, that he is an autocrat. And if he takes power again, he will be an autocrat. And this worshiping of Hitler's power, just like this worshiping of President Xi, just like this worshiping of Kim Jong-un, just like this worshiping of Vladimir Putin, it all comes from the same disturbing place. He has an anti-American bent to authoritarianism.
Absolutely. I mean, Donald Trump has told us like 57,000 times who he is. And we see clearly who he is. And what a sick, warped individual he happens to be.
And that's not a one-off. I mean, this is like the norm on Morning Joe. This is just nuts. But and just to hammer home how they've disgraced themselves, I guess, with all this, and how the gatekeepers have shown how deranged they are. I mean, they go from saying, oh my gosh, this guy's Hitler, and hey, maybe we can work with Hitler. This is what they were saying, and we've shown this clip a million times, but it's so good because it shows how little how much damage they've done to their own reputations in taking sides, I guess, instead of just reporting objectively the news. Leon, could you play KNP 3?
Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever. Not a close second. And I've known him for years. The Brzezinskis have known him for 50 years. If it weren't the truth, I wouldn't say it.
In a nutshell, is the whole, mainstream media, just the way they've just destroyed themselves and their credibility. And there's actually some consequences. And could you bring up the visual real quick? CNN is laying off hundreds of their people. I mean, it sounds like they're just, completely, having their ratings flop now because people don't believe them anymore about anything. And MSNBC is running into the same thing too, which is the home of Morning Joe. So anyways, I kick all this to you guys now, but I think that Morning Joe has encapsulated the collapse of mainstream media's credibility and all this.
Well, they are clearly, and they have clearly lied and propagandized themselves into extinction, because I think Mike spoke about all the different ways we now are getting news, that these people who once had this prestigious position in our lives, where they were supposed to be the objective dispensator of truth and news without their nasty opinions, they have now become part of the resistance, shall we say, the resistance to Donald Trump, the resistance to anything on the right, the resistance to liberty, the resistance to freedom. They have become that. And Joe Scarborough, who used to be a Republican, who used to be a man of the right, but suddenly he started sleeping with Mika and his brains went into his butt. Thank God for that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Michael.
it's basically they just lie, and it became, and they have a certain audience that believe their lies, like the people that paid me for their bets. But now those people are waking up. I mean, they've lost 50%. MSNBC since the election, 50% of their viewership has gone away, and it already dropped precipitously from the COVID era. And so basically, they don't count. They don't matter for much anymore. And those two people, how despicable can you get? I mean, Joe Biden is the best version of the man ever. I mean, really? I mean, so obviously,
like
even people that are stupid see it,
Yeah. He's definitely got a credibility issue, that guy. So nobody believes him when he calls one person Hitler and the other person the best version ever.
And like Jason said, now they're willing to sit down with Hitler. It's just nothing adds up. It's all they're opportunists.
Yeah,
they're going to take whatever comes their way if it's got a paycheck attached to it, and they're going to say whatever they're told to say. That's really obvious.
Well, at least they finally got an interest in making some money. Give them that.
Well, and remember too that after Biden was kind of forced out of office, when everybody else stopped believing Joe Scarborough on how wonderful Biden was, then suddenly Joe Scarborough started talking about, well, I guess it was just time for him to go, and now Kamala, we got to get behind her. One thing after another.
But even that clip where Joe said, "F you if you don't believe me," or whatever. But he said that I would not have said it if it wasn't true, I would not have said it, or whatever it was he said. That is his just delusions of grandeur. That statement actually came out of the Bible. That was Jesus Christ talking to his disciples, talking about, if it wasn't so, I would not have said it. Okay, that's his delusion of grandeur.
Yeah. Well, and I just, that clip, we morphed that together because it was happening around the same time he said it, when Joe Biden had that episode at, I think it was, oh gosh, what's the name of that one holiday that's not really a holiday? Juneteenth. Okay, so I guess it was a Juneteenth celebration that they were having at the White House, and I mean, everybody could see he looked like he froze, like it was Weekend at Bernie's, and yet not too far from that, Joe Scarborough was just saying, this is the best Biden ever. If you can't see it, then there's something wrong with you. And at some point, I mean, that's the media. I just, wow, that's where we've gotten.
They have lied themselves into non-existence.
Exactly. The absurdity of what they say has come home to roost.
Yeah.
And I don't think that there's going to be any going back. And this is so good because up until now, media has been largely centralized in these places, and we've always got from the central fonts of authoritarianism. Now we have all these citizen journalists and people like Joe Rogan, who just started out as like you guys, as a humble podcast, and it just now he has more viewership on one of his podcasts than all of those guys put together.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
That's the embarrassing thing.
Fortunately, we don't. But
give it time.
One day soon.
Yeah. Well, I guess I wanted to take it back full circle to your, Formidable Gentleman Club. Michael, if you had any words you wanted to say about it. And Leah, maybe you could bring up the visual again, the Formidable Gentleman. And by the way, I did have one observation while we were talking to all this. Maybe looking at this image, you could put that red pill, blue pill thing in the glasses. I was just thinking about that,
not everybody in the club is, like yourself, you're clean shaven. But I just put that image up there because the beard was something that was distinctly male, that was it. But I think red pill and the blue pill is a good metaphor for what's going on. And a lot of people have been red pilled lately, even if it was a suppository.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the blue pill comes from the government's monopoly on education. I think a lot of kids get into suppository and don't realize it.
Yeah.
So so anyways, Mike, is there any last thoughts you had about the club, or any last words you wanted to get out before we break?
No, the only thing is that I encourage this. You don't have to be in a club, you don't have to be in a men's group, but if you're a man, it's time to stand up. It's time to stand up for your family. It's time to stand up for our nation. It's time to stand up for the world, because this is not just about the United States. This is about the world. And this is a pivotal time in all of our history. And so, little actions, even though this is a little action, all of our little actions amount to something big. And I'm just encouraging men to speak their minds and do it without a fear, at least with courage. I mean, we're all going to have a little trepidation, a little fear, but I just want men to reassume the roles as truth speakers and as protectors and defenders and providers and all the things that our fathers did,
Yeah.
And I think everything comes together, and I'm seeing it. And it's not because of my group or our group. It's because we're all coming to the same conclusions, kind of, independently. And so I have great hope that the next 4 years, the next year is going to have tremendous consequences for all of us. I'm really hopeful. I mean, I think the future is so bright, shades won't do. We're going to need welding goggles.
Well, that's certainly an optimistic note to leave on. So thanks so much for joining us, Mike. And if you're watching us now, think about, before the next show, think about what you can do in your community. I mean, Mike is standing up in his community, and we've talked to a whole bunch of people who are out there. They're looking after our elections, trying to stand up. They're people who are running for office. It's just a lot of people out there who are doing their part. And so think about what you can do to stand up for liberty in your community, because in the end, we've seen a lot of them. They're coming for our liberty. And if you don't stand up, you ain't going to get to keep it. So until next time, stay tuned and stay free.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Thank you, guys. It was fun.
Thank you.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.